From this soldier who defied orders to a lost childhood in Northern Ireland, here are 50 powerful images that tell untold stories around the world. Number 1. Starting with this 1945 disturbing Japanese boy picture. At first glance, there are many things that disturb you. This 10 years old Japanese boy has his younger brother seen at the backside, who died during the American Army's bomb raid. On August 9, 1945, the US exploded 2 atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 major Japanese cities. As a result of this action, more than 200,000 innocent people died, and one among them was that small fellow. Number 2. Brave Soldiers Berlin Wall Act. In August 1961, a brave East German soldier broke the rules. He helped a young boy cross the newly built Berlin Wall. Now, the boy was stuck on the wrong side. His parents were in West Berlin visiting family. Then, despite orders not to let anyone pass, the soldier decided to act. He lifted the boy over the barbed wire so he could reunite with his family. A photograph captured this daring moment. After, the soldier's superiors saw what he did. This led to the soldier being removed from his unit. His exact fate is unknown. Some say he might have been reassigned, if he was lucky. Still, others think he could have faced prison for disobeying orders, but he was likely not executed. Number 3. Anna Ladd. In 1878, Anna Coleman Ladd was a female American sculptor who was most famous for producing artificial faces to disfigured soldiers in World War I. She participated in cooperation with the American Red Cross team in Paris. In fact, the masks were made of copper and other substances. Consequently, these restored their looks and self-esteem. These were lifelike masks that matched skin tones when painted. Miss Ladd's work was hailed as both artistry and humanism. This endeavor went on until she died in 1939. Thus, many injured troops got hope and self-respect out of her laborious endeavors. Number 4. The Kiss of Life. In 1967, this photo captured pure humanity. J.D. Thompson and Randall G. Champion, 2 electrical linemen, were doing routine work when disaster struck. Champion touched a live wire and was left unconscious, hanging by his harness. Thompson rushed up to the pole and gave him mouth-to-mouth. Then, after getting him down, he performed CPR. He started breathing again and lived for another 30 years. Still, this moment would have been lost if not for Rocco Morabito, who arrived just after the accident and captured it. Number 5. British Terra Nova Expedition. In 1991, photography was still new. Carrying bulky equipment seemed impractical for Britain's Terra Nova expedition to the Arctic. Many saw it as unnecessary, but Herbert Ponting's glacial photo captured the beauty of one of the last frontiers. It was taken long before handheld cameras and satellite photography. Even today, it is a marvelous sight. Number 6. Disneyland opens. Next, on July 18, 1955, Disneyland officially opened its gates to the public. More than 50,000 visitors came, and their reactions were filled with awe and excitement. Just a day before, Walt Disney, with Governor Godwin J. Jr., dedicated the park. They were joined by 25,000 special guests. Many celebrities and officials attended. Stars like Danny Thomas, Art Linkletter, and Charlton Heston were there, along with government leaders like Governor Knight and Secretary of State Frank M. Jordan. Local officials and many others also joined in the celebration. ABC TV broadcast the event live. Walt Disney and Art Linkletter hosted, assisted by Bob Cummings, Danny Thomas, and Ronald Reagan. The broadcast began with the inaugural trip of the Disneyland train, co-engineered by Disney and Governor Knight. Guests then moved to Frontierland, where Fess Parker and Buddy Ebsen rode in on horses. They visited shops and watched Irene Dunny launch the Mark Twain River steamboat. Finally, they entered Fantasyland through Sleeping Beauty Castle. Knights stood guard as children enjoyed rides like King Arthur Carousel and Peter Pan. The Mouseketeers helped dedicate the Mickey Mouse Theater. Number 7. Happy Girl and Cat. Well, history isn't just names and dates. It's also about how people lived. This 1959 photo of a French girl and her cat shows everyday joy. Number 8. Soviet explorer feeds polar bears. In 1976, Soviet explorer Nikolai Muchaliek did something extraordinary. Near Cape Schmidt off the Chukchi Sea coast, he fed a polar bear and her cubs. He used condensed milk and meat to help the bears survive the harsh Arctic climate. This act wasn't a simple one-time event. Soldiers often had to feed the bears due to the severe conditions in the Chukchi Peninsula, where temperatures could drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Muchaliek's act was part of a larger trend. Soviet soldiers stationed in this harsh region would feed polar bears with whatever they had, often condensed milk, a common dessert for Soviet kids and soldiers. The bears quickly learned to associate humans with food, becoming more curious and potentially dangerous. The photos from this period show well-fed bears, debunking claims that they were starving. Number 9. Let Me Taste. But next, take a look at this lovely photo from 1954. Here you can see two cats standing on their feet, reaching out to catch milk during milking at a farm. This iconic photo was captured by Nat Farbman and was later published on Instagram by this user. Number 10. Beatles fans then and now. Next, in 1964, Ringo Starr took a photo of high school friends who skipped school to see the Beatles during their first US trip. Nearly 50 years later, in 2013, those same fans recreated the moment. Number 11. Blackfoot Warriors. This photo from 1910 shows Native American Blackfoot warriors at Glacier National Park, Montana. They're on the shore of St. Mary Lake, and you can see the vast landscape behind them. The photo was taken by Roland W. Reed. The warriors are standing and sitting on a rocky ledge, holding staffs adorned with feathers. Number 12. Catherine Switzer at the Boston Marathon. In 1967, the Boston Marathon was a male-only event. Catherine Switzer, determined to challenge this, registered as KV Switzer, hiding her gender. She received the famous bib 261. During the race, an official named Jock Semple spotted her. He tried to physically remove her from the race. Boston Globe photographer Paul Cornell captured this intense moment. Switzer's boyfriend intervened, allowing her to continue. Switzer's participation was more than a run. It was a statement against gender inequality in sports. Despite the hostility, she finished the race. Her resolve was clear. If I quit, everyone's gonna believe women can't do this. This act of defiance became a significant moment in the fight for gender equality in athletics. Switzer's efforts didn't stop there. She campaigned for women's rights in sports, leading to the inclusion of the women's marathon in the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Games. Her initiative, 261 Fearless, continues to empower women through running. Number 13. Furor Bunker, Last Days. The Furor Bunker in Berlin, which was completed in 1944, served as Adolf Hitler's last headquarters. He relocated to it in January 1945, and by April, the place had become crowded with Hitler's top brass, including Eva Braun and Joseph Goebbels, along with their families. April 29, 1945 saw him marry Eva Braun while here. The day after that, both of them committed suicide. Their bodies were burned in the garden of the Reich Chancellery. Soviet forces surrounded Berlin, and intense fighting occurred. Hitler's generals tried to defend the city, but it was futile. The Furor Bunker was deep underground, with 30 small rooms and thick concrete walls. It was damp and had constant groundwater problems. It had electricity, a well for water, and communication systems. Hitler rarely left it, except for brief walks. By late April, the situation was dire. Hitler held his last military conferences and blamed his generals for the defeat. He appointed new commanders, but knew the end was near. On April 30th, he and Eva Braun ended their lives. Goebbels became the new head of government, but soon killed himself and his family. The remaining staff tried to escape, but were mostly captured. The Soviet army took over the bunker on May 2nd. Number 14. Hindenburg Disaster. The Hindenburg disaster occurred on May 6, 1937, in New Jersey, US. The LZ-129 Hindenburg was a German airship named after Field Marshal Paul von Hindenburg. Fueled with hydrogen, it caught fire while attempting to dock, causing 35 fatalities. The accident marked the end of the airship era and shattered public confidence in rigid airships. The cause of irrigation and spread of the fire remained debated, with theories focusing on the fabric covering the hydrogen used for buoyancy. Despite hydrogen burning invisibly, the materials around it could change the color of the fire, as shown in black and white photographs of the era. The disaster was extensively covered by newsreels, photographs, and radio reports, leading to lasting impact on air travel. The Hindenburg disaster is analyzed through film footage showing the fire spreading downwards, contrary to typical upward fire behavior due to enormous radiant heat. Skeptics of the incendiary paint theory argue that it would have taken longer for the airship to burn if coated with rocket fuel. Modern experiments discredit the incendiary fabric theory, showing it would have taken about 40 hours for the Hindenburg to burn from combustible fabric alone. Number 15. Serbian convicts. In 1864, American George Kennan explored Serbia for the Russian-American Telegraph Company. He wrote about his travels and the region's diverse cultures, gaining fame. Kennan returned to Russia in 1885, focusing on political prisoners and criminals in Serbia after the Tsarist crackdown post-1881. Witnessing harsh conditions, he shifted his views and published Serbia and the Exile System, advocating for democratic reform. He was banned from Russia in 1901. Number 16. Early human photograph. The Boulevard du Temple photo from 1838, taken by Louis Daguerre, is one of the earliest surviving daguerreotypes. Though it shows a seemingly empty street, it is considered the first photo to capture a human, with a black boot and his customer visible. Number 17. Red Warriors. The Red Warriors were a French youth anti-fascist gang in the 1980s. They used violent force against neo-Nazi violence and acted as security for punk shows and left-wing activists, becoming well known for their confrontational methods. Number 18. War is Hell. In 1965, AP photojournalist Horst Fass captured Larry Wayne Schoffen of the 173rd Airborne Brigade smiling with "War is Hell" on his helmet. Number 19. Robert Cornelius. Robert Cornelius took the earliest known photographic self-portrait in the USA in 1839. He posed motionless for 10 to 15 minutes to capture this historic image, marking a significant milestone in the evolution of photography and self-portraiture. Number 20. Mount St. Helens eruption. During 1980, during the eruption of Mount St. Helens, a photographer captured a striking image of the event. Although he missed capturing lightning bolts due to camera filter limitations, the photograph became iconic, featured on TV news and Mount St. Helens brochures. The photographer narrowly escaped the blast's path, which claimed lives nearby. Returning later, he documented the aftermath, including a poignant image of a burned-out pickup with a horse trailer. Number 21. Child labor. Lewis Hines' 1910 photographs of child minors were pivotal in inspiring the first child labor laws in the United States. Number 22. teasing the guard. In the 1970s, a girl playfully licked an ice cream while teasing a royal guard with the tip of his bayonet outside Stockholm Palace, Sweden. Number 23. Great White Blizzard. In March 1888, a fierce blizzard struck the east coast of the United States, extending from Chesapeake Bay to Canada. Known as the Great White Blizzard, it unleashed up to 50 inches of snow, with wind gusts reaching 80 miles per hour, creating drifts as high as 30 feet. A photograph captures an unknown young man standing in a cleared area on Madison Avenue and 40th Street in New York City. Lyman Woodman, a farmhand in Massachusetts, described his blizzard ordeal in his diary, noting long hours of shoveling and deep snowdrifts. Number 24. Liberation Joy. In 1945, photographer Menno Huizinga captured Dutch children clinging to a moving train's doors after the country's liberation from German occupation. Over 200,000 Dutch died from war-related causes, with the Netherlands having the highest per capita death rate among Nazi-occupied countries in Western Europe. Tragically, more than half, about 107,000, were Holocaust victims. Number 25. Japanese POWs in World War II. Between August 1945, before the end of World War II, approximately 35,000 to 50,000 soldiers from Japan's Imperial Armed Forces surrendered to the Allied forces. Moreover, Soviet forces detained more than 500,000 Japanese military personnel and civilians in various locations in China and other regions. The number of surrenders was low due to the Japanese military's indoctrination to fight to the death, Allied forces' reluctance to take prisoners, and Japan's soldiers' fear of being killed if surrendered. Western Allied governments instructed that Japanese POWs be treated according to international conventions, but many Allied soldiers were hesitant to accept surrenders due to Japanese wartime atrocities. Efforts in 1944 to encourage the taking of prisoners saw increased success. Japanese POWs often believed they had severed ties with Japan and provided military intelligence to the Allies. Western Allies generally kept POWs in good conditions, while Soviet POWs faced harsh treatment in Siberian labor camps. After the war, POWs were repatriated, though the Soviet Union held many until the early 1950s, and some until the 1990s. And with that, we are already halfway through this list, but there are still some scary and beautiful images to come, so keep watching till the end. Number 26. Henri Cartier-Bresson. Henri Cartier-Bresson's 1954 photo captures a young boy on Rue Mouffetard, Paris, proudly carrying 2 bottles of wine with a triumphant grin. Number 27. Golden Gate Bridge construction. In August 1935, a photo shows a tower and anchorages of the Golden Gate Bridge with cables spanning between them. Construction began on January 5, 1933, and took 4.5 years, costing over $35 million. This iconic suspension bridge connects Marin County and San Francisco. The image is part of a collection of nearly 100 photographs by Charles M. Hiller, documenting the bridge's construction, commissioned by the Associated Oil Company from 1933 to 1936. Number 28. Amasunzu. Now at first look, you might think your hairstyle is stylish, but that's nothing compared to the Amasunzu. The Amasunzu is a traditional Rwandan hairstyle once worn by men and unmarried women to signal their availability for marriage. This unique style involves cutting hair sideways toward the middle, forming elaborate crescent shapes. Historically, there were over 30 variations of Amasunzu, and while it's less common today, some people still maintain this striking cultural tradition. Number 29. The Wreck of Arden Craig. Francis James Mortimer captured the iconic photo, The Wreck, in 1911, off the Isles of Scully, showcasing his mastery of pictorial photography focused on maritime scenes. The image immortalizes the three-masted wheat ship Arden Craig, tragically wrecked in foggy conditions against rocky shores. Mortimer, a pioneer in yacht photography and son of a photography enthusiast, innovated with a self-made waterproof camera while braving challenging conditions at sea for his art. His work extended beyond seascapes to include experimental techniques like composite negatives and bromoil, blending photography with fine art. Number 30. Grand Central Terminal. Grand Central Terminal is in Midtown Manhattan, New York City. It serves Metro North Road's Harlem, Hudson, and New Haven lines. The current structure, built by the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad, opened on February 2, 1913. Designed by Reed and Stem and Warren and Wetmore, it replaced an earlier depot by Cornelius Vanderbilt. The terminal spurred development in the surrounding area, known as Terminal City. Over time, it became a bustling hub for commuters and inner-city travelers. Despite proposals to demolish it in the mid-20th century, Grand Central was preserved and received landmark status. Number 31. Antinous Statue Discovery. In 1894, French archaeologists unearthed a magnificent statue of Antinous at Delphi, Greece, near the Temple of Apollo. Commissioned by Emperor Hadrian in 130 AD, Antinous was a beloved companion of Hadrian. The statue is now located in Delphi's Archaeological Museum. Number 23. Willy Rouge's Parachute Jump. Photojournalist Willy Rouge was famous for his aerial reportage in the 1920s and 1930s. In May 1931, he captured a parachute jump near Berlin using a camera strapped to his belt. Number 33. Peyro Family Cat Photograph. In November 1909, a charming photograph captured three members of the Peyro family in Wakefield, Massachusetts, being photographed by their cat. The image features Edmund, age 12, Ernest, age 8, and Cecilia, age 5, playfully posing as their feline companion appears to take their picture. This whimsical moment was photographed by Joseph C. Peyro. In 1961, Hollywood saw an unusual event when over 100 black cats gathered to audition for a horror movie. The director of the 1962 movie Tales of Terror wanted to use a black cat for a spooky effect. So they issued a casting call in newspapers, and an astonishing 152 cats showed up with their owners. Photographer Ralph Crane captured the scene on N. Bronson Avenue, where the sidewalk turned into a catwalk. Leashed cats lounged on the sidewalk, waiting for their turn to audition. The picture of this event, shared on social media, gained over 6 lakh likes and sparked vivid responses. People were curious about the audition process and which cat got the role. Cat lovers were delighted by the sight. One person even joked about hosting a fake audition, and another declared that they were getting a black kitty. Number 35. Fishermen carrying a huge fish. In 1930, Istanbul thrived with a rich culture and economic history. Fishing was vital to the city, and the Bosphorus Strait offered an abundant supply of fish. An iconic image from that time shows a fisherman carrying a huge fish, highlighting a moment when the fishing industry flourished. This fisherman caught the fish from the Bosphorus Strait, or the nearby Black Sea. The fish was probably caught using traditional methods like nets or fishing lines. Although newer technologies like motorized boats and modern gear were emerging, many fishermen still relied on these age-old techniques. Number 36. Lewis Hine. The story behind this photograph is a lesson in how photographers create stories with their pictures. Lewis Hine was known for his ability, and once said that if he could tell the story in words, he wouldn't need a camera. Some great photos happen by chance, with the right time, gestures, and angles coming together. But other photos, even those that seem like simple documents, come from hard work and careful planning. Hind's picture of a steam pump mechanic is one of these. During a session with Pennsylvania Railroad mechanics, Hind took many photos of different men and machines. He finally chose the model in this image after making many small adjustments to the man's pose and the camera's position. The result is a series of photos that look very similar. Some are often used as the iconic image, even though they are not exactly the same. For example, the photo here is not Hind's favorite. In his preferred version, the mechanic's arms are more extended and his head leans forward more. Number 37. Perilous Journey to School. In Lebak, Indonesia, this image shows children crossing a partly collapsed bridge over a swollen river to get to school. Despite the danger, the children preferred this risky path to walking an extra 30 minutes to another bridge. This image has become a shocking example of the hardships faced on the road to education. When the photo went viral in early 2012, the bridge was quickly repaired. However, many other bridges remain in disrepair. Beyond physical infrastructure, issues like poor instruction quality, lack of suitable content, and a shortage of qualified teachers persist, especially in early childhood education. In rural areas of India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, the imbalance in science and math instruction remains a major problem due to a lack of qualified teachers. Number 38. Friendship. This photo is one of the loveliest pictures I have seen. In it, a man named Muhammad is carrying his paralyzed friend, Samir. The photo was captured in Damascus, Ottoman Syria, in 1889. Number 39. Marilyn Monroe's Korea Tour. In January 1954, Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio tied the knot in San Francisco and then honeymooned in Japan. While DiMaggio was busy with his basketball clinics, Monroe took a solo trip to the Korean peninsula. The Korean War had ended the previous year, and Monroe's visit provided much-needed entertainment for American troops stationed there. Over 4 days, Monroe toured American military bases, performing 10 shows for about 100,000 thrilled servicemen. This tour was a break from her tense marriage with DiMaggio, whose jealousy and controlling behavior led to their divorce 8 months later. It was also a chance for Monroe to confront her stage fright. Monroe later reflected on the experience, saying, "It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I never felt like a star before in my heart. It was so wonderful to look down and see a fella smiling at me." Number 40. War veterans struggle in 1928. In 1928, a war veteran in Canterbury, Kent, England, sold matches on the street. This moment was captured in a poignant picture by Clifford R. Adams. The early 1920s prosperity had faded by 1925. Economic hardship took hold, and many veterans, like this man, faced unemployment and poverty. The general strike of 1926 highlighted the growing gap between the rich and poor. Over 1 million mine workers were locked out for demanding fair wages, and this nearly toppled the government. The agricultural sector also suffered, and many farmers went bankrupt and sold their farms to meet financial obligations. Despite the tough times, there were social advancements. Families were smaller, children were educated until 14, and women gained more freedom, with voting rights extended to all women over 21 in 1928. Number 41. Grief on 9/11 Rooftop. On September 11, 2001, a man comforts a woman on a Brooklyn rooftop as the World Trade Center towers collapse. Captured by photographer Robert Clark, this never-before-seen photo reveals the tender side of a tragic day. Number 42. Emiliano Salazar. Emiliano Zapata Salazar, born in 1879 in Morelos, Mexico, became a pivotal figure in the Mexican Revolution. Leading the agrarian movement known as Zapatismo, he fiercely opposed the oppressive land policies of dictator Porfirio Diaz. Zapata's Plan de Ayala, promulgated in 1911, demanded substantial land reforms to benefit the peasants. Number 43. Hong Kong. Fan Ho is among history's most impressive and talented photographers. His photographs of Hong Kong from the 1950s and 1960s are particularly striking due to his longtime documentation of the city. Number 44. Freezed Beauty. Detroit's historic Washington Boulevard was a marvel of winter in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The fountain, featuring jets of water that froze into massive ice formations reaching up to 60 feet tall in chilly years, became a celebrated attraction. Designed by Augustus Woodward after the Great Fire of 1805, Washington Boulevard evolved into a showcase of Beaux-Arts architecture, with landmarks like the Western Brook Cadillac Hotel and the Book Tower. Number 45. Mercury. In 1936, the Mercury streamliner of the New York City Railroad raced through the center of Syracuse, going by Syracuse City Hall. This famous train represented the streamlined modern aesthetic, known for its smooth, curved designs representing the optimism and advancement of the time period. Crafted by Henry Dreyfuss, the Mercury impressed not only with its external appearance, but also brought in new interior features such as paired seating and luxurious amenities. Number 26. Samurai warriors in 1860s. Samurai were powerful in Japan. They were less than 10% of the people. The Meiji Restoration started in 1868. This marked the decline of samurai. They served as military nobles. After 1868, Japan began to change. Feudalism ended and samurai lost their power. They often rebelled, but were defeated by the new military. The rise of photography at this time helped capture images of samurai. These photos show the samurai's last years of power. Number 47. D-Day memories in color. D-Day happened on June 6, 1944, when British, American, and Canadian forces landed in France to push out the German Empire. Jake Larson, now 96 years old, remembers the exhaustion of that day and tasting champagne for the first time after battle. For many years, he did not think about his experience, but when he finally did, his memories were vivid and colorful, like the day itself. Number 48. The ship Penang in 1932. The ship Penang was a 3-mast bark built in 1905. It was first named Albert Rickmers. In 1910, it was sold to F. Leisch in Hamburg and renamed Penang. By 1932, it was in Millwall Docks in London. The ship stood tall over the poorhouses around it. Penang was sold many times and changed owners often. In 1940, it was torpedoed by a German submarine and sunk. Sadly, none of the crew survived the attack. Number 49. Worker on steel beam. This photo was captured by Arthur Gerlach in 1930. A worker smokes a cigarette while carrying a bag on his shoulders. He pauses on a steel beam high above the city streets. This was during the construction of the Manhattan Company building at 40 Wall Street in New York City. The site shows the dangerous and daring work done by construction workers at great heights in the 1930s. Number 50. Lost childhood in Northern Ireland. In 1973, British occupation in Northern Ireland took away many childhoods. Philip Jones Griffiths captured this in his photos. He focused on the impact of colonization. This was personal for him as he saw many similar effects in Wales. The conflict in Northern Ireland was more tribal than religious. Photographers like Ian Barry and Chris Steele Perkins showed the deep violence and poverty. But if you want to see something even scarier and more disturbing than this, then you should check out this video on screen.